Hi, I'm Craig Hancock, the project manager for the Heber Valley Corridor Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS.
And I'm Naomi Keeson, the environmental manager for the EIS. The purpose of our project is to improve regional and local mobility on US 40 from River Road, or SR 32, to US 189 and provide opportunities for non-motorized transportation while allowing Heber City to meet their vision for the historic town center. We completed screening in March of 2025, which is how we would determine which concepts we would evaluate in greater detail in the draft EIS. This was a multi-step process that focused on how well all alternatives meet the purpose and need of the project and the potential environmental impacts. We looked at regional mobility and evaluated travel time savings on the new corridor and reducing conflict points like intersections and driveways. Local mobility was measured by traffic performance on Heber Main Street during the PM peak hour, using metrics like level of service, LOS, or how long it might take to get through an intersection. We also considered Main Street travel time and queue length, or how long the traffic backup is at key intersections. To pass Level 1, alternatives also needed to be compatible with Heber City's vision for the historic town center, which calls for lower speed limits, pedestrian and bike-friendly design, landscaping, and a community gathering place. Alternatives A and B passed Level 1 screening, and we refined them to include bicycle and pedestrian accommodations and evaluated potential impacts to key resources like wetlands, historic buildings, archaeological sites, as well as houses and businesses in Level 2 screening. Both passed through Level 2 screening, allowing us to evaluate the benefits and trade-offs in detail in the draft EIS. To help inform our decision-making, federal guidelines require we look at a no-action alternative. This establishes our baseline to compare the transportation improvements or actions that we're considering. Under this scenario, we project the traffic conditions for the Heber Valley by 2050, assuming no major improvements are constructed. We assume that all regional road projects in the long-range transportation plan will be completed, except for what we are proposing in the EIS. The planned development along the east side of US 40 is assumed to proceed as scheduled, along with additional traffic signals installed according to the formal corridor agreement between UDOT, Wasatch County, and Heber City, specifically at University Avenue and Commons Boulevard. These future signals would be installed to accommodate the planned development along US 40. UDOT's involvement would be limited to essential safety and minor maintenance activities, such as pavement rehabilitation, drainage facility upkeep, and signal timing adjustments. Under the no-action scenario, the basic physical configuration of US 40 remains unchanged, but new traffic signals would be added at University Avenue and Commons Boulevard, as well as new unsignalized intersections and driveways, as long as they meet minimum spacing requirements. This is our foundation for evaluating the necessity and effectiveness of our proposed improvements.
The alternatives carried forward for the detailed study in the EIS are the no-action alternative, to be used as a baseline, and two free-flow alternatives, one that uses existing US 40 north of downtown Heber City, and the other creates an alternative corridor to existing US 40 between Potter Lane or College Way and downtown Heber. Both action alternatives are intended to be limited access facilities with vehicles entering and exiting at specific locations where there are ramps or interchanges. Alternative A, shown on the left, uses existing North US 40. Alternative B, shown on the right, creates an alternative to the existing US 40 through the North Fields. Alternative A and Alternative B are the same south of 900 North. Both options require improvements along 1300 South to provide access to the new corridor from South US 40. To give the community a better idea of what the alternatives we are proposing could potentially look like, we prepared photo simulations of both alternatives at key locations. What you are seeing is a simulation of Alternative A at Coyote Canyon Parkway. US 40 would cross over Coyote Canyon Parkway, and there would be ramps providing access to US 40 from Coyote Canyon Parkway. Alternative A would be a 4-lane controlled access freeway that combines improving the existing US 40 north of 900 North with a new route around the west side of the city. The design uses bridges, ramps, and grade-separated interchanges to allow traffic to flow continuously without stopping at signals or stop signs, with access limited to specific locations shown as white circles in the figure on the left. The existing US 40 north of 900 North would be rebuilt with 2 lanes in each direction, a central barrier, and a speed limit of 55 miles per hour. A system of discontinuous frontage roads would be included along US 40 to group together local driveways and access points, improving safety and traffic flow on the main highway. This section of North US 40 includes new interchanges at River Road or SR 32, Potter Lane or College Way, and Coyote Canyon Parkway. At 900 North, main corridor traffic uses ramps to transition to the new western route, while traffic entering or leaving downtown Heber would use a standard traffic signal, similar to the signal that exists today. The new western corridor has 65 mph speed limit and features a 50-foot wide safety median connecting 900 North to US 189 near Southfield Road. The western corridor includes two new interchanges, one at 1300 South and a specialized single-point urban interchange, or SPUI, at SR 113. A SPUI is a type of highway junction where streams of left-turning traffic do not cross, allowing the opposing left turns to occur at the same time. The interchange at I-15 and 800 North in Orem is similar to what is being proposed for both Alternative A and B at SR 113, where SR 113 would pass under the Heber Valley Corridor, similar to how 800 North passes under I-15. There are also many other SPUI interchanges on I-15, including at Center Street and University Parkway in Orem. At 1300 South, there would be an elevated highway section for through traffic with parallel one-way frontage roads below for local traffic to have access to the local roads and commercial areas. A paved 12-foot wide trail is planned along the corridor, ensuring active transportation options for pedestrians and cyclists parallel to the highway. Alternative A is estimated to cost $711.9 million if it were built now, though this could change in the future based on final design and the construction year when the project is funded. This figure shows how Alternative A would fit with the North Village Master Planned roadway network. The white dots show the previously planned traffic signal locations on North US 40 at SR 32, University Avenue, Commons Boulevard, and Coyote Canyon Parkway. Heber City has been working with developers to direct the local roads to these signalized locations. It is not possible to construct interchanges at the agreed upon signalized locations because they are spaced too closely. With Alternative A, there would be an interchange at Potter Lane or College Way and Coyote Canyon Parkway. There would be directional ramps at 900 North connecting North US 40 and the Western Corridor. There would be no connections to North US 40 at University Avenue or Commons Boulevard. University Avenue and Commons Boulevard would connect to discontinuous segments of frontage roads. Some out-of-direction travel would be required. With Alternative A, there would be no alternative route to North US 40, so it would need to serve both regional and local trips. Because there would be no alternative route to North US 40, maintenance of traffic during construction would be more complex. Next, we will review Alternative B. What you are seeing on the screen is a simulation of Alternative B from Muirfield Park, looking at 900 North and the new Western Corridor through the North Fields. As you're coming from the Park City area, Alternative B would be a 4-lane controlled access freeway that creates an alternative route to US 40 between Potter Lane or College Way and 900 North through the North Fields before traversing the west side of Heber City, connecting to US 189 and South US 40. Similar to Alternative A, access to the main freeway is restricted to free-flowing ramps and grade-separated interchanges, ensuring a continuous flow of traffic. The existing US 40 north of downtown Heber City becomes an arterial street or major street with a reduced speed limit of 45 mph. To handle local traffic, the existing northern US 40 will include new or upgraded traffic signals at Potter Lane or College Way, Commons Boulevard, Coyote Canyon Parkway, and 900 North. The new high-speed 65 mph freeway section through the North Fields provides a direct route with 4 lanes and a wide safety median. The 900 North segment includes an additional interchange connecting the North Fields extension to the Western Corridor section. The Western Corridor and 1300 South sections of Alternative B are identical to Alternative A, featuring the elevated 1300 South section and the interchanges at SR 113 and 1300 South. A multi-use trail is planned to run parallel to the new corridor. If constructed today, Alternative B would cost approximately $760.5 million. This figure shows how Alternative B would fit with the North Village Master Planned roadway network. Impacts would be the same as Alternative A between SR 32 and Potter Lane or College Way. It would not be possible to provide an interchange at University Avenue. University Avenue would connect to a frontage road that would provide access to US 40 at SR 32. South of Potter Lane or College Way, Alternative B could be more of a local road with a lower speed limit and more access allowed, similar to today. Alternative B includes signalized intersections at Potter Lane or College Way, Commons Boulevard, Coyote Canyon Parkway, and 900 North. South of Potter Lane, there would be no impacts to existing or planned accesses. Alternative B would provide an alternate route to North US 40 between Potter Lane and 900 North. For this reason, maintaining traffic during construction would be less complex. Traffic could use US 40 while the Northfield extension is constructed. This table shows how each alternative meets the purpose of the project by improving regional mobility. Existing conditions are highlighted in light gray to provide a point of reference, and the no action alternative is highlighted in dark gray. Alternative A is highlighted in green, Alternative B is highlighted in orange. Both Alternative A and Alternative B meet the purpose and need of the project by improving regional mobility. The no action alternative does not. Traffic operations are expected to break down with excessive delays if no improvements are made. Both Alternative A and Alternative B do a good job of improving regional mobility and safety compared to the no action alternative. Travel from SR 32 to US 189 at about 3000 South takes a little less than 11 minutes today, but is expected to take 23 minutes and 40 seconds if no improvements are made. This same trip is expected to take 7 minutes 25 seconds with Alternative A or 6 minutes 15 seconds with Alternative B. Alternative B is the fastest because it provides a more direct path at a higher speed limit compared to Alternative A. It would be faster to travel on a new corridor than on Main Street with either Alternative A or B, which is important to attract commercial truck traffic away from Main Street. This table shows how each alternative meets the purposes of the project by improving local mobility, which is focused on Main Street. Both Alternative A and Alternative B meet the purpose and need of the project by improving local mobility. The no action alternative does not meet the purpose. If no improvements are made, 5 intersections on Main Street are expected to fail during the evening rush hour, and traffic heading towards downtown is expected to back up 17,100 feet or 3.2 miles. It would take about 20 minutes and 30 seconds to travel from SR 32 to the hub intersection. With Alternative A, there would only be one failing intersection. The traffic backup would be reduced to 3,500 feet or 2/3 of a mile, and travel time would be reduced to 11 minutes and 50 seconds. With Alternative B, there wouldn't be any failing intersections. The traffic backup would be reduced to 700 feet, and travel time would be reduced to 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Alternative B does a better job at shifting traffic away from Main Street to the Western Corridor because it offers a more direct travel path at a higher speed limit compared to Alternative A. So Alternative A would have higher traffic volumes on Main Street and on the east and west legs of the intersections, resulting in more complex traffic operations and greater delay.
We evaluated multiple resources that could be impacted by either alternative. I'm going to take you through an overview of our analysis. You can find additional details in Chapter 3 of the draft EIS. Alternative A would convert 251 acres of urban and agricultural land to a transportation corridor, compared to Alternative B, which would convert 276 acres. Neither action alternative would affect areas that currently have a conservation easement in place. None of the alternatives considered are entirely consistent with local land use plans. The no action alternative would not implement a western corridor, which is shown in plans adopted by Heber City and Wasatch County. Neither Alternative A nor Alternative B is consistent with the North Village Master Transportation Plan, as mentioned earlier. Alternative B includes the Northfields extension, which is not shown in any adopted plans. The Farmland Protection Policy Act provides certain protections for prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance. Alternative A would impact 179 acres of farmland. Alternative B would impact 223 acres. Agricultural protection areas are also provided certain protections. Alternative A would impact 11.8 acres compared to 38.4 acres with Alternative B. The sewer farm is where the Heber Valley Special Services District disposes treated sewage wastewater by farming alfalfa. Impacts to the sewer farm would be the same for both alternatives A and B, which is 64.2 acres. Economic impacts are possible with any of the alternatives. Businesses on Main Street would be affected by changes in congestion and changes in traffic volumes. Destination businesses, where customers plan to visit in advance of their trip, such as offices and sit-down restaurants, would be positively impacted by reduced congestion. Convenience businesses, where customers visit on impulse or when passing by, such as convenience stores, could be negatively impacted by reduced traffic. A relocation is when a business or home has to move either because the building would be demolished or because parking or access would be lost. Alternative A would require relocating 15 businesses and 12 homes for a total of 27 relocations. Alternative B would require relocating 2 businesses and 6 homes for a total of 8 relocations. For Alternative A, UDOT would need to acquire 295 acres of land, compared to 328 acres for Alternative B. Sometimes UDOT needs to acquire more land than is needed for a transportation corridor, either because access would be lost or because the leftover land would not be of value to the property owner. This is why the right-of-way acquisition is larger than land converted to roadway use. Vehicle emissions would be reduced with Alternative A and B as a result of decreased traffic congestion and reduced travel times compared to the no-action alternative. None of the alternatives are expected to result in a violation of air quality standards. A receptor is an area that is sensitive to noise, such as a backyard, park, or church. UDOT evaluated traffic noise for existing and planned receptors. Alternative A is expected to result in traffic noise impacts to 230 receptors, 227 of which are residences. Alternative B would result in impacts to 277 receptors, including 273 residences. Our plan is to retain all stormwater runoff within the right-of-way, so it will evaporate or infiltrate. No stormwater will discharge into creeks or streams. Neither Alternative A or Alternative B are expected to result in violations of water quality standards. Aquatic resources include wetlands, streams, canals, and ditches. Alternative B would impact 53.92 acres of aquatic resources, compared to Alternative A, which would impact 22.52 acres. Alternative A would impact 3.2 acres of floodplain, compared to 3.4 acres for Alternative B. Alternative A has greater long-term adverse visual impacts to residents along North US 40, while Alternative B has greater adverse impacts to residents in the Northfields. Alternatives A and B would require wetland mitigation. Mitigation ratios typically begin at 2:1, where 2 acres of mitigation are provided for every acre impacted, and increase from there depending on various factors. Once designated, wetland mitigation sites have the potential to limit sprawl based on where they are located because they are protected in perpetuity and cannot be developed. Throughout the study, UDOT has heard from the public and local government officials that they desire to protect the Northfields. In response, and as a commitment to the community, UDOT will prioritize establishing a mitigation site in the Northfields with either alternative. Alternatives A and B would be limited access facilities under UDOT's jurisdiction. There would be no access allowed beyond the interchanges and ramps identified in this presentation. This includes the extension through the Northfields for Alternative B. UDOT is committed to no additional interchanges between Potter Lane or College Way and SR 113 being built in the Northfields. This lack of access would reduce the potential for induced development.
The primary advantages for Alternative A are fewer impacts to resources in the Northfields, primarily wetlands and farmlands. Alternative A also has fewer noise impacts, mainly to planned developments in the North Village. The primary disadvantages of Alternative A are that it does not perform as well from a transportation perspective and would result in more impacts to homes and businesses. The primary advantages of Alternative B are related to transportation performance. It provides the best regional mobility through faster travel times, a more direct travel path, and higher speed limit. Alternative B provides the best local mobility because it does a better job of removing regional traffic from Main Street, resulting in less congestion and better operations. It is more likely to pull commercial truck traffic off of Main Street. It's also less disruptive to the local road network and planned development, where North US 40 could still be used for local access and provides an alternate route to North US 40 for a longer distance. Alternative B would also result in fewer impacts to Section 4F resources, such as historic buildings, and fewer residential and business relocations. The primary disadvantages of Alternative B are greater impacts to wetlands and farmland in the Northfields. We have identified Alternative B as the preferred alternative because it is better for regional mobility, offering faster and more direct travel. It would pull more regional and truck traffic off of Main Street with less cut-through traffic on local roads compared to Alternative A. We have heard this is important to the community. It would provide an alternate north-south route for the valley and add more capacity, making the overall regional network more resilient to handle future growth. Alternative B would have greater impacts to wetlands and farmland in the North Fields, but fewer impacts to homes and businesses, fewer Section 4F impacts, and fewer impacts to the community during construction. Alternative A would provide an inferior driver experience, resulting in less people using it. There would be more out-of-direction travel and more variation in travel speeds with the 900 northbound flyover at 25 miles per hour, similar to the southbound I-15 exit to US 6 in Spanish Fork, which is difficult for trucks to navigate. Alternative B would provide a limited access facility through the North Fields, preventing access for future development. Alternative A would provide frontage roads adjacent to the North Fields, which could result in easier access for future development. The figure on the bottom left shows Alternative B with leader lines pointing to the location of 3 areas I will describe in more detail. North is to the right in these figures. The top left image is the intersection of 900 North and the Western Corridor, and the image on the right is the intersection of US 40 and Potter Lane, or College Way. The image on the lower right shows how Alternative B would interact with local roads in the North Fields. Again, the white circles on the bottom left figure indicate a free-flow connection, meaning vehicles would not need to stop. This figure shows design details for Alternative B at the interchange between the Western Corridor and 900 North. Vehicles traveling north-south on the Western Corridor would not need to stop here. They would cross over 900 North and 1200 North. Vehicles traveling westbound on 900 North could access the Western Corridor to travel northbound or southbound. Vehicles traveling northbound or southbound on the Western Corridor could exit to head east on 900 North. This graphic shows how the Western Corridor would connect to North US 40 at Potter Lane or College Way with Alternative B. Travelers on the Western Corridor heading northbound would fly over US 40 on a ramp before touching back down and merging onto northbound US 40. There would be no stopping required. The speed on the Western Corridor would transition from 65 miles per hour to 55 miles per hour on the ramp and North US 40. There would be a standard 4-way signalized intersection between US 40, Potter Lane, and College Way at ground level, below the flyover ramps. There would not be a connection between Potter Lane or College Way and the Western Corridor here. To access the Western Corridor from Potter Lane or College Way, drivers would head southbound on US 40, turn right at 900 North to access the Western Corridor at the interchange shown on the previous slide. This graphic shows how the Western Corridor would interact with the local roads in the North Fields with Alternative B. The Western Corridor would go over all the local roads, including 600 West, 1200 North, 1800 North, and 2400 North. The existing connectivity for these local roads would not be severed. Next, I would like to walk everyone through the proposal for 1300 South. This area is the same for both Alternative A and B. On the next few slides, I will go over the designs, and then afterwards, I will discuss travel patterns for some common destinations. On the left side of the image is the interchange in the sewer fields. This interchange would provide access in all directions between the Western Corridor, US 189, and the 1300 South leg of the alternative. Southfield Road would not have access to the sewer field interchange. It would end in a cul-de-sac north of the interchange. To provide a free-flow facility, we have elevated the through lanes over 300 West, US 189, and Daniels Road. Eastbound access to South US 40 would be at grade. Westbound access to the corridor from northbound US 40 would use a flyover ramp. Between the sewer field interchange and the US 189 near the hub intersection, local access would be maintained by one-way frontage roads along 1300 South. Industrial Parkway would be right in, right out only. There is no through movement over or under the Heber Valley corridor here. A multi-use trail would be provided between the Western Corridor and South US 40, shown in orange. This image is a close-up of the west half of the alternatives. Each direction of the sewer field interchange is free flow. The corridor would travel over the railroad and 1200 South. This image is a close-up of the east half of the alternatives. Industrial Parkway would be right in, right out. Just west of this location is where the through lanes would start to rise to cross over 300 West, US 189, and Daniels Road. One-way frontage roads would provide access to 300 West underneath the elevated through lanes. The intent of this design is to maintain both regional free flow traffic and local traffic movements. It's a very narrow corridor with existing development, the airport, and the configuration of the hub intersection. The existing multi-use trail on 1300 South would be reconstructed, tying into a new multi-use trail which would connect to South US 40 near 1500 South. We know many of you will use the new corridor to get to and from Midway, so I'll walk you through access via both alternatives we're proposing. This graphic shows how people would get from Midway to the Heber Valley corridor for those headed southbound to US 189 for either alternative A or B, and they are the same in this area. Travelers would get on the southbound on-ramp at the SR 113 interchange, continue through the interchange in the sewer farm, then take the ramp to US 189. On the Heber Valley corridor, this would be a 65-mile-per-hour trip without any stops all the way to US 189. This graphic shows how people would get from Midway to the Heber Valley corridor headed northbound with alternative A. Travelers would get on the northbound on-ramp at the SR 113 interchange. The first part of the trip would be at 65 miles per hour, slowing down to 45 miles per hour for the east-west segment on 900 North. Drivers would need to slow down to 25 miles per hour for the directional ramp at 900 North and US 40. Once on US 40, the speed limit would be 55 miles per hour to SR 32. This graphic shows how people would get from Midway to the Heber Valley corridor headed northbound with alternative B. Travelers would get on the northbound on-ramp at the SR 113 interchange, just like with alternative A. The speed limit between SR 113 and US 40 would be 65 miles per hour. The flyover at Potter Lane would be 55 miles per hour. Once on US 40, the speed limit would be 55 miles per hour to SR 32. Alternative B would offer a more direct path at a higher speed limit than alternative A. Our traffic analysis shows it would attract more traffic to the western corridor compared to alternative A. The model shows about 20% less traffic on River Road with alternative B compared to alternative A. Alternative A and alternative B are the same south of SR 113, so the access would be the same for either alternative in this area. The Heber Valley corridor would be constructed on the same alignment as Southfield Road south of 1200 South. At 1200 South, Southfield Road would end in a cul-de-sac. This graphic shows how residents living in the neighborhoods along Southfield Road would get on the western corridor traveling southbound to US 189. Some out-of-direction travel would be required compared to what is available today. There would be no direct access from Southfield Road to the western corridor headed southbound. Travelers would need to navigate to Industrial Parkway, head south to 1300 South, then make a right turn onto 1300 South. Alternatively, if residing further to the east, residents could navigate to 300 West and make a right onto 1300 South. Then they would merge left onto the corridor at the interchange in the sewer field and take the southbound ramp to US 189. The speed limit on 1300 South would be 45 miles per hour, and the speed limit on the western corridor would be 65 miles per hour. This graphic shows how residents living in the neighborhoods along Southfield Road would get on the western corridor traveling northbound to SR 32. There would be no access from northbound Southfield Road to the northbound corridor because there is not enough space to get across multiple lanes safely. Instead, travelers would need to navigate to 600 West, then head westbound on SR 113 from east of Southfield Road before getting on the northbound on-ramp. Due to the intersection spacing requirements, we cannot accommodate a traffic signal at Southfield Road and SR 113. If a traffic signal were placed here, there would be congestion and queuing issues between the signals on SR 113 in the future. Other accommodations could be considered, such as allowing U-turns at the high school signal, or Heber City or Wasatch County could realign Southfield Road to tie in at the high school intersection in the future. The multi-use trail is shown in orange on the east side of the western corridor, turning due east, connecting to Southfield Road at the south end of Southfield Park. It would then follow the west side of Southfield Road to SR 113, where it would connect to the existing Midway Lane Trail. The trail would cross SR 113 at the signalized intersection by the high school, before continuing to follow the western corridor to the north. There would also be a grade-separated trail crossing south of SR 113. This would require some out-of-direction travel, but would provide a safe way for Midway Lane trail users to get across the western corridor without crossing traffic. Both Alternative A and B would result in improved mobility overall, enhanced safety, and less traffic on Southfield Road.
For both action alternatives, noise levels for receptors like homes, businesses, parks, and schools would be higher than with the no action alternative. For our analysis, we included both existing receptors and future receptors, which have been planned but not built. Alternative B would result in more total noise impacts and more residential noise impacts compared to Alternative A. However, it's important to note that many of those impacts are to places along North US 40 that have not yet been built. A total of 24 noise barriers were evaluated for the action alternatives. Alternative B had 3 noise barriers that met the feasibility and reasonableness criteria for recommended balloting. These are shown in light blue, labeled F, HH, and II, with 2 walls along the north side of 1300 South and one on the east side of US 40 near University Avenue. Alternative A had 4 noise barriers that met the feasibility and reasonableness criteria for recommending balloting. 3 of these walls are the same as for Alternative B, plus another shown in dark blue labeled M on the south side of 900 north of Muirfield Park and the Elmbridge Apartments. Traffic noise abatement is only considered for implementation if it is both acoustically feasible and reasonable. Feasibility takes into account engineering considerations like safety, topography, and utilities, while achieving a noise reduction of at least 5 decibels for at least 50% of front row receptors. Reasonableness is a design goal of a minimum noise reduction of 7 decibels or greater for at least 35% of front row receptors, meaning the barriers can be designed in a way that results in measurable reduction of noise. Final decisions on building a noise barrier and the subsequent balloting of residents will occur during the final design phase. However, this noise wall policy could change by the time the project is constructed.
I would like to shift gears now and talk about property impacts. Right-of-way acquisition assumptions are based on EIS level design information. In the future, when the project is funded and moves through final design, some property impacts may be reduced. Based on current assumptions, both of the action alternatives would impact 2 commercial buildings on the south end. UDOT would acquire these properties and relocate the businesses, Betty's Cafe and Homeland Storage. Alternative A would also have direct impacts to 6 commercial buildings containing 13 commercial businesses that are newly constructed or are planned to be constructed. These buildings are located in the New London commercial developments in the southeast and northeast quadrants of the US 40 and 900 North intersection. In total, Alternative A would require relocation of 15 businesses. Alternative A would also require the acquisition of 12 homes and the relocation of residents or tenants who live in the homes. Alternative B would require relocating 2 commercial businesses, Homeland Storage and Betty's Cafe. Alternative B would also require the acquisition of 6 homes and the relocation of residents or tenants who live in the homes. Overall, Alternative B would require far fewer potential relocations of residents and businesses than Alternative A. Alternative B would require 8 total relocations compared to 27 relocations with Alternative A. UDOT follows the same process statewide for acquiring properties for projects. Our goal is to work together with property owners to reach fair resolutions while ensuring infrastructure improvement projects can move forward. The right-of-way process only applies to those property owners who are directly impacted by the project. Right now, only the EIS has been funded. Construction has not been funded. Because funding has not been identified, timing for the next phases, including right-of-way acquisition, is unknown. We have purchased some properties with corridor preservation funds where specific conditions are met. The steps listed on the left generally outline the right-of-way process once we have construction funding. First, we need to conclude this EIS process by selecting an alternative and finalizing it with a record of decision or a ROD. After the ROD is published, we will need to identify funding for the corridor. Once project funding is secured, the next activity is final design. While impacts can change between our design and the final design, the general alignment would stay the same. Once the design is final, then the right-of-way process can formally begin. This process includes contacting the property owner directly, getting an appraisal of their property, presenting an offer, and working through any follow-up requests on the offer. UDOT purchases property for fair market value. If an agreement cannot be reached, then a condemnation proceeding would begin. However, we really try to work through concerns before condemnation. UDOT has agents that work directly with impacted property owners on these transactions at no cost to the seller. If someone is renting an impacted property, UDOT provides relocation assistance. More information about the right-of-way process and a downloadable version of what is on screen is on our website.
Now that we've summarized the key findings of the draft EIS, I'd like to take some time to talk about how your input helps inform our decision-making and how it's used. We're holding a 60-day formal public comment period, which is the maximum amount of time allowed by the federal law. The comment period will run from January 9th to March 9th. There are a number of different ways to submit a comment, which are listed on the left. Public comments submitted during the public comment period are not considered a vote, but do help inform our decision. Comments are one input among many that we will use to make final updates and decisions regarding the project. Comments will be used to consider things that may have been overlooked, such as property or environmental impacts. There are several things that help make a great comment. Comments are more impactful when they are solution-oriented. Clearly identify the issue or resource you're concerned about and reference specific sections or topics in the draft EIS. Include data, citations, observations, or personal experiences that support your comment. A comment explaining, "I don't like this project because it impacts X," or "I support this project because Y," are more helpful than one that simply says, "This is great, build it," or "This will ruin the community." Comments may also be in the form of a question, in addition to statements. All substantive comments will be responded to in the final EIS. Thank you for watching and for your interest in the Heber Valley Corridor Environmental Impact Statement. We encourage you to review the full draft EIS analysis, which contains a detailed look at the potential impacts and proposed mitigation measures for both Alternative A and Alternative B.
We look forward to receiving your input and hope to see you at the public meetings.